Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're back on the second dev server for update Starfighter, and we're looking at a rank 4 battle rating 5.7 new American light cruiser. This is the USS Cleveland, the CL-52 or 55, depending on if you believe the stat card or if you believe the name up here, but basically this is another gun cruiser that has been added to America. Where you'll find it in the tech tree is just before the Brooklyn. So therefore it'll be easier on the modification grind, and also it'll be nice to use while also bringing along stuff like the Helena and also the Brooklyn itself and the Atlanta, which is a pretty nice machine too. The USS Cleveland has access to the same guns that you find on a lot of machines nowadays. It has access to the main mounts of 4 6-inch triple mounted guns, 2 on the front and 2 on the back. You also have 6 5-inch dual mounts, which are in the center of the machine. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have access to 4 sets of 4 sets of dual mounted Bofors, and then also some 20 millimeters, 13 of them all over the machine. You don't get access to any depth charges or torpedoes, so this really is just a gun cruiser, and it definitely brings the guns. If we have a look at the X-ray model of the machine, you can see how very well detailed it is. As I've said many times, I'm very envious of the people who create the ship models in War Thunder. I think the ship models are just amazing. They are truly up to standard when compared to many other games out there, and also models. It should be something which is very much appreciated in the game. But you can see in the front you have fuel tanks around the ammunition, you have the standard ammo elevators, and in the center you have 2 smokestacks which actually power relatively small engines for the size of machine that this finds. Armor profile, you have the hull of 25 millimeters, the superstructure of 17 millimeters, and this is added onto a very small thin belt of 127 millimeter rolled cemented armor, a little bit of 82.5 millimeter below that, and the ammunition on the front is covered by 50.8 armor, millimeters of armor, but remember the fuel tanks are behind that as well, and on the back you get a little bit extra, so 101.6 and also 76.2 covering that ammunition. You have some anti-fragmentation armor, which is also around the place, basically to stop shells being able to go everywhere, and then 127 millimeters here. The ammo elevators themselves, 139.7 and then 152.4 on the stacks respectively, and the main turrets are 76.2 millimeters all around and 165.1 on the front of them. Then you have the anti-fragmentation armor on the 5-inch turrets, 31.75, and the bridge itself gets a nice 152 millimeters along with some of the other towers. So the armor profile of this machine is not the best in the game, but I tell you what, it's not the worst. There's a lot of armor going on here for these machines. The next thing is you can get separate rounds for your 152s and 127s. Obviously they're sat in the modification tree, which because you're put before the Brooklyn, you won't have any like massive modification costs compared to something like the Brooklyn, so that's kind of nice to have. But you start off with a HE shell with 49 millimeters of pen across the board. You unlock an AP shell as a rank 1, 268, 215, 192. Then you get a high explosive with a base fuse, and also a high explosive with a variable time fuse. So if you feel like annihilating some planes, you can try and do that with your 152s. One of the nice things about these 152s, or 6 inches, they have incredibly good reload speed, and this is something that is a testament to pretty much all of the very good destroyers and cruisers that America has in the game. The 127 millimeters also get access to a HE shell to start with, then they get an SP common, which is an AP round, and it has not a ton of explosive mass, but enough, and has decent penetration on the 5 inches as well. Then of course the HEVT to try and deal with aircraft, but I still don't have great luck with HEVT when it comes to aircraft for me. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on for this machine, which is nice. It has a crew complement of 1,255, and what this pretty much means is you are very survivable. 1,255 crew is definitely something to be proud of. If you have a look at many other crews out there, the Portland only has 848, Pensacola 653, the Brooklyn has only 800, and the Atlanta has 600. Shows that the general survivability of the Cleveland should be higher because it has so much more crew than its competitors. The other ones which are similar to it are the Eugen, which has 1,776, the Gentlespie obviously has 1,175, and the Hipper with 1,400. So we're getting much more on terms of German level now with these American cruisers, instead of just, you know, being a machine which has a lot less crew to it. So let's put on the HEVT to start with, and we can have a go at just being able to damper a few things. So adding another very similar machine to the Brooklyn. Obviously this is a Cleveland class, it is slightly different to the Brooklyn class that we have in game. It still means that this machine is going to be incredibly strong with the amount of guns that it has, with the amount of stuff it has access to. You can see the 40mm there just tearing up everything in the sky. You have a ton of guns which will be able to deal with pretty much anything that you can find, whether it's a small boat or whether it's large boats. And then in order to deal with larger machines such as cruisers or destroyers that you may find, you can just use the main guns, and you can fire them in sequential, being able to do tons of damage to other machines that you may find. You can also see the wonderful other guns taking part, but let's just turn them off for now so I can actually hear myself think. But yeah, the one nice thing that I like about these light cruisers from America is you can keep sequential firing, meaning that you can keep a base of fire up at all times. So you can see what I mean, where you can just even if you are done with a clip, you can just keep firing over and over and over again, and this puts complete pressure on an enemy, and it means that you can run down the machine like you can see I'm doing here. So you can pretty much just fire as many shells as you want at the enemy and just keep a base set of fire and attack all of it instead of just certain parts of it. One of the problems with like waiting for a full salvo is, yes, you can get a very nice hit off sometimes. You know, you're able to pretty much just do something like this, and it sounds lovely, and you can put, you know, a massive piece of damage on the enemy in a specific place. But if you move up and down an area, instead of just doing that, you can, in effect, do so much more damage. Now, obviously, one of the big things is against cruisers, HE is great for setting fires, and obviously great at doing a few things, but it's not great at dealing a ton of damage. Luckily, the Cleveland, along with a bunch of its brothers, has access to AP rounds, so you can do a lot more damage with them against the larger machines, and since you're at 5.7, you're going to be one of those high-tier machines. The fact is, when we have a look at... or we could just hit the ammo. The fact is, when we look at a machine like this, it doesn't get any higher in the BRs. You know, we have had a bunch of vehicles added more recently which are around the 5.7 BR bracket, whether it be the HMS London, whether it be obviously the Eugen and the Gentlespie, and at the end of the day, this is just another one added to it which trades the overall firepower of the main guns for something which I think is actually better, and that is the idea of fire rate. Fire rate, as long as you can keep the guns going, means that you don't have to rely so much on accuracy. Instead, what you can rely on is being able to move around and try and get shots off more leisurely. If I play something like the Gentlespie or let's say the Megami, for example, I've got to make sure that my shots are incredibly accurate, so therefore I'm able to hit ammunition, I'm able to do as much damage as possible, and try and cripple the enemy ship before he cripples me. The Cleveland, the Brooklyn, and the Helena give you a little bit more leeway when it comes to all of these things, and it means that because you have such a high fire rate, you can target different areas of the ship and not feel like you always have to go for that money shot, which is of course the ammunition or something similar to that. So dealing with machines for me is a lot easier to do when I'm in a machine like this. It pretty much means that it's a little bit more, I suppose, user-friendly in a way. Now, one of the only issues with the Cleveland, compared to a lot of other machines, is the fact that it isn't as fast as other cruisers. It's definitely not up there with some of the quickest ones. You've got to remember that we have now access to some of the Italian naval stuff, and some of the selling points for their cruisers, whether they be light or heavy, is the speed that they find themselves at. I wouldn't say the Cleveland is a fast cruiser by any mean, but at the same time, it's still only 10 kilometers an hour slower than some of those Italian naval machines which are seen as fast. So I think it's completely fine when it comes to its overall speed, as long as you can target acquisition well and you can keep these large guns firing. That is the main thing at the end of the day. And even with some of them being knocked out, with having all of the 5 inches to back them up and all of the Bofors to make sure to try and take out, you know, all of the planes, it is really nice to see this machine in. I think Germany is still the strongest when it comes to high tier in naval, but with the addition of the Cleveland class and the Cleveland cruiser, I think America is now getting closer and closer to parity with it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Eugene's Terry, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.